Greetings and hello, Porter County, to yet another edition of the PoCo Wellness Hour, right here on WVLP 103.1 FM, your voice for local community radio, and of course, your show for community connection, health, and overall well-being. I'm Demetrius Lewis, Communication Specialist for the Porter County Health Department. Here on the PoCo Wellness Hour, we like to shine a spotlight on the incredible health initiatives that are shaping our community and the powerful partnerships that make it all possible. From local organizations working to improve public health to the innovative programs led by the Porter County Health Department. This is your show to stay informed, inspired, and engaged on your wellness journey. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's conversation about building a healthier Porter County together. Now, we are right at the beginning of the school year. We've been in school for a couple of weeks now, and whether your child goes to a public school or a private school, the issue of bullying is just that, an issue. And here to educate us, we have a very special guest in studio tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to the founder and the executive director of Bullying Free Future. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Jennifer Dudrey. Jennifer, how are you today, ma'am?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us on the PoCo Wellness Hour today. So before we get into the topic of bullying and all the kids going back to school, let's get to know you a little bit more, Jennifer. For the listeners out there, let's talk a little bit about your background, maybe where you grew up, and what kind of student were you? Were you an athletic student? Were you one of the kids that were in Glee? Let's talk a little bit about your background, if you don't mind, Jennifer.
No, that's perfectly fine. So I'm a Northwest Indiana native, born and bred. I was raised in Griffith, Indiana, went to Maryville High School because we moved to Maryville after my father's death when I was 16. And I played softball in Griffith. My dad raised me right with a girl playing softball. He was always at my games. So, Northwest Indiana is in my blood. Still live in Northwest Indiana, live in Porter County now. I have 3 kids in the Porter County school systems. And that's why I started my agency in Porter County.
So you're a homer. Northwest Indiana homer.
I am all the way.
Gotcha. That is awesome. So let's go back a little bit more into your background. Did you ever experience or witness bullying as a child coming up in school?
I think when we're kids, we look at things differently. Looking back now, times are so different now than they were then. I'm sure there was bullying. I think I looked at it back then more like teasing. I don't have any traumatic bullying incidents, that kind of thing. I certainly, though, understand and remember there were some of those kids, the kids that nobody talked to, the kids that were identified as like outcasts, things like that. And I think any school, anywhere, any grade level, anywhere, kids can identify those kids. And I'm sure that those kids probably did experience things. Did I personally witness it back then? Not that I can recall.
Understood. And like I said earlier, it doesn't matter what kind of school setting you're in, public or private. This is an issue nonetheless, no matter what kind of setting that you're in. Was there a specific moment or experience that inspired you to start the organization, Bullying Free Future? What made you realize that there was a problem that you had to dedicate yourself to?
Yes, so I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been working in mental health since I was 21, so I have almost 32 years experience in the field. So yes, that tells you how old I am. Let's not do the math. But as a clinician, I worked primarily in community mental health, and then I delved into working more with adolescents. And at the time that I created the program, I was working in an intensive outpatient, which is where kids come, adolescents 12 to 18. We're coming every 3 times a week for 3 hours a night to do therapy. And basically what we were hearing and what they were saying is they didn't want to go to school. A lot of school refusal, school avoidance, school anxiety, and kid after kid after kid was telling us that, I'm being bullied, school is terrible, kids are telling me to kill myself, they're texting me all the time, I can't even play my game, I don't want to go to school, there's nothing for me there. And kid after kid after kid, then you realize, hey, we got to do better. And when you start really looking into it, everyone says, every school says, we have a program, but what do you actually do? What does that actually mean? And I know schools can't be everything, right? Schools primarily have the responsibility of educating our kids. But schools also have a responsibility to create a safe learning environment. And we have kids that, why would I want to go to school when I'm getting texted 24/7 to kill myself? And I mean, this is really happening. Kids are being texted these kinds of messages. Kids are being told by their peers, you should die, you should kill yourself. That's not okay. I don't care what planet you're from, that's not okay. And so just looking around and saying we need a better system to give kids a voice, because over and over again, these kids just don't want to go anywhere. They don't want to hang out with people because there's a risk. Kids should get to be kids, from 0 to 18. That's a very short window of time. And you blink and it's gone. And for those 18 years, your brain's still developing. Your self-esteem is developing. And if you get crushed in those fragile years, those effects last a lifetime. And we have kids, when you look at it, kids who have actually committed suicide. Stand for the Silent is a great organization from another state. And I mean, you look and they have memorials for, they stand for the silent, those kids who actually have killed themselves due to bullying and peer pressure, things like that. I wanted to do more. So we set up a 501c4 nonprofit. And our job is primarily to do bullying prevention and awareness and education. What bullying is, what it isn't, what parents can do, because parents feel helpless. And so we wanted to provide a space for parents. Here's your rights, know your rights, read your school handbook, know what your school's policies are. We also wanted to give a voice to the kids and have a space where they could come and simply just talk about what their fears are, what they're experiencing, so they feel like they can be heard. Because so many of them feel like, well, there's no point in telling anybody, nothing's gonna change. So we wanted that space. So our primary is to do support groups. Then I'm a dialectical behavioral therapist and my clinician in my private practice. So what I decided to do was take some of those tools and also cognitive behavioral therapy, which is known to help with behavior change. And I kind of developed a bullying intervention program. And what we're doing in at least Oregon Davis and Hamlet, where I've been now going on my 4th year, is provide a group for the kids who've been identified with impulsivity problems, bullying basically, and then also we do a support group there every 2 weeks for anyone who wants to come talk. And that's the goal. The goal is to be where the students are and to help them. It's not to become adversarial with schools. It's not to, create tension. It's to teach kindness, because without kindness, it doesn't matter. Like, that's a game changer. So it's to teach kindness, to teach kids how to coexist, how to recognize you don't have to like everybody, but you do have to treat them like they're humans.
A little bit of nice goes a long way, does it not?
Absolutely.
How long has Bullying Free Future been around?
We started officially probably 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still a baby.
Still a baby.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So we talked a little bit about the approach of Bullying Free Futures. Can we go into a little bit more detail about that? Any specific programs or initiatives that you would like to kind of place your organization apart from maybe others in the community?
Well, I think because we'll come to you. We do have an online support group for kids, because we recognized early on that, if we do a bullying support group in a school, kids are not going to want to go in there necessarily because they don't want to be in that room. That's where the bullied kids go, right? We didn't want to have any type of stigma associated with it. So we developed the online. And then for Oregon Davis, when they reached out to, we kind of reached out to them and they kind of then responded to us, was, what do you need? And so our program is going to be tailored to whatever the school needs are. We've gone to Montessori of the Oaks. We've gone to St. Paul Lutheran. It's like, what do you need? So if you only need us to do like your bullying convocations, because every October is Bullying Prevention Month, if you need us to do a parent night, we'll do a parent ed group just for them on a one-time thing. So we'll tailor based on what the school needs are, because every school is probably going to have a little bit different need and different population kind of needs. So we want to be able to tailor it to what they need.
So with tailoring those needs, is the work that you do specific to Indiana's bullying laws, the Indiana Bullying Code? Is it go off of that?
Yeah, it goes off of that, but it goes off of that in terms of defining what bullying is, right? Because the schools all have to adopt a bullying like program in terms of what they do and how they define bullying. And most of the public schools follow the Indiana code, right? But then in terms of how they do their quote unquote bullying programs, that's up to them. So like I know one school in particular, one school district does a survey, which is an evidence-based survey, and that is considered their bullying program for them. And then they can bring in different speakers, different, like I think they've used Rachel's Challenge, and which is a really good program too. So I mean, there's different things that you can use. I don't think anyone has something that's necessarily ongoing, other than like a survey or other than bringing in convocations. You know, some schools have contracts with local mental health centers like Porter Stark to do like social skills groups with kids. I do not honestly know how many of those actual groups are on specific, bullying kinds of things, but they do basically like the social emotional learning that schools have to do. They're a part of that as well.
Gotcha. Understood. So can we talk a little bit about the key elements of Indiana's definition of bullying that people should know, may not be aware of?
Sure. And this is all public data. You can reference it in your school handbooks because they usually quote it, but you can look up on the Indiana Department of Ed website. It's IC 20.33.8.2 or 20-33-8.2. And it is the generally subscribed Indiana definition, which is overt and unwanted and repeated hostile acts that basically target a student. They used to have reference to there needs to be a power differential, and over the years they've kind of tweaked that a little bit. But basically, it's overt, unwanted, and repeated behavior in which the victim has no assurances that it will stop. Okay, which the repeated is a big one because a lot of parents get stuck in, well, my kid was in a fight. Is that bullying? No, it's not, because it's not repeated, right? If two guys get into it, right, or there's a breakup, right, and the couple fights or something, that's a one and done usually, right? This is, every day they're trying to toss me into the wall. Every day they're pushing me against the wall, trying to toss me in my locker. Every day they're tripping me in the hall. Like, that's repeated, right? That falls under the bullying definition. And then Indiana does also specify the types of bullying, which would be verbal, which would be cyber, physical, social, relational, right? Those are pretty much the standard bullying types. And so then it defines each of those. And each school has to have a policy in place into how they're going to handle not only the incident, but the timeframes they're going to report it to parents, both on the perpetrator and the victim side, and then have to have criteria as to how they're going to, if it falls under disciplinary, what that means and all of that. So I would say to parents, make sure you're reading your handbooks or go on your school's websites and check for it, because they'll even say like bullying policy, pretty overt language to go look it up.
And they're required by law to have these policies?
Private schools are a little different, but yes, public schools have to, because the other caveat to this is public schools are required to report bullying data to the state every year by July 31st. And then the state puts together basically a safety report that includes, ironically, bullying and arrest data, which you kind of wonder why those two are grouped together, but I get that, you don't need separate reports for everything. And that, again, that is public knowledge that you can access on the Indiana Department of Education website under their school safety report, bullying and arrest data. They have not updated their 2024-2025 school year, because that's one of the things I track every year. But what they also put on is the reported bullying incidents by school district. And so if you want to know how's my school doing, you can check that. And it's a spreadsheet with just all the public schools in Indiana. Now, I will tell you that not all schools report, because you'll see lots of zeros across the board. Verbal, written, electronic will be 0, 0, 0 across the board. That usually means the school didn't report, or maybe they did report they had 0 incidents. So, you have to look at numbers with a grain of salt. But I do know that there are schools that religiously are committed to reporting that data, and they do very, very well at doing so. I know that you have to look at data again and say, okay, is this now, if the numbers go up, is it really more bullying, or is it more people reporting it? Because a lot of bullying goes unreported, because kids aren't going to report it because they don't think it's going to make a difference or they don't want to be a snitch. So you also have to look at that. And it's not just necessarily kids reporting, it's what the school reports to the state as bullying. So you could have 100 kids report bullying, but is that really what it is? And does the school quantify it by that when they do their state reporting?
Understood. That's a lot of good information right there. And like you said, this stuff it's public record.
It's
so
public
anyone
record.
can get this information.
Yes.
That's good stuff, ma'am. Let's move on to our second segment, if you don't mind,
Sure.
defining and understanding bullying. You mentioned the big four. We'll go over those here in a little bit, but many people, you also mentioned this earlier, many people confuse teasing with bullying. Can you kind of help us understand what the key difference is and what are some of the key distinctions between teasing and actual bullying?
So teasing is usually done same power stratus, right? So you're with your friends and, people ribbit each other, right? Teasing each other. It's meant to be lighthearted. It's not meant to cause intentional harm to a victim. Obviously some people don't know when to stop teasing, right? But if they see that their friend's legit getting upset about it, getting distressed by it, they'll stop, right? It's lighthearted in nature. That doesn't necessarily mean that some people don't tease to be hurtful, but typically teasing is meant to be amongst the same level peer group. We all know each other. We're all generally kind of associated with friends. It's kind of same friend group kind of thing, okay? And it usually stops if the victim asks that it stopped, okay? It's not meant to be vindictive. It's not meant to be malicious. Bullying is done with the intent to cause physical, emotional harm to the victim. Okay, teasing is not that at all, right? Teasing is like, oh, well, you take a joke. You'll often hear that. They're not doing it with the intent to annihilate the other person. Bullying is done with the intention of trying to hurt you. Bullying is, you should kill yourself. There's no joke about that. Even to think that that's a joke isn't. Right? But telling someone, your mom dresses you funny, or you know what I mean? Or, why would you wear that shirt? It's so stupid. That's not meant to cause unirrevocable harm to somebody. Okay? So there's kind of the difference there, right? And it's the same power level. We're peers. I'm not going to walk up to somebody I don't know, and start teasing them. You know what I mean? So this is more of just, teasing is more lighthearted in nature. And again, it's people and people that you trust that would stop if you ask them to. Bullying is, again, repeated, it's unwanted, it's meant to be hostile, it's meant to be hurtful, and it's intended to cause harm. If I'm going to push you and lock you in a locker, I'm intending to cause harm to you, right? If I'm going to punch you, if I'm going to call you names as you walk down the hall every day, that's not lighthearted teasing. Right? That's with the intention of making your life miserable, and to also let you know that I am trying to control you and have power over you. Teasing isn't that at all.
Gotcha. As we mentioned, and we'll get into it here in a little bit, the big four, I call them, the four big ways that you can bully somebody. Is it fair to say that teasing, is it fair to say that teasing is more verbal?
Yes, teasing is more verbal. I mean, there could be verbal bullying as well. Absolutely. But like I said, teasing is more lighthearted. Verbal bullying is saying insults, okay, spreading rumors, which could fall into the social as well. Verbal can be telling someone simply to kill themselves. I mean, that's verbal bullying, right? Calling people names, that's verbal. But again, teasing is usually by people that or is a one and done kind of thing, or if that, verbal bullying is every day. I'm calling you out for something. It could be derogatory. It could be, quote unquote, the slut shaming that we hear about. It could be those terms, right? It could be racist terms. It could be, that is verbal bullying, right? Which is a far cry from teasing, okay? Physical, that's the easiest to spot. Verbal, sometimes a lot of adults miss because a lot's done under the breath, right? In a loud hallway where you've got 100 voices going on, right? Adults can't always pick up on those. But physical, punching you, giving you a black eye, tripping you in the hall, right? Obvious. Damaging property also falls under physical. So if I take your stuff, I rip up your homework, okay? I throw your books down. I take your water bottle, and I won't give it back until I make you say certain things when I know you have a lisp. That one also falls under social. But, things like that, anything with property damage, anything with hitting, kicking, spitting, biting, pulling of the hair, as the NCIS slap, when they whack you in the back of the head,
Gibbs.
Yeah. People say, oh, that's just an NCIS slap. Do it every day as you walk by somebody's desk. You know what I mean? Yeah. So those are more along the lines of physical. Social can be overt and can be covert, kind of. The overt is a kid goes to sit at a cafeteria table, and guess what? Everyone else gets up and walks away. That's pretty overt social bullying, okay? But then you have the texting. You have, hey, we're doing a group project, but then you're texting someone in the group like, hey, don't talk to Susie, don't give her any info, or make her do all the work. And so there's that. Social bullying is spreading rumors. Social bullying is, inviting someone over for a play date or a sleepover, but you give them the wrong address on purpose, okay? Or nobody's there when they get there because everyone left because they didn't really want them showing up. Saying you're going to come to somebody's birthday party, but then text in your friend group or spreading rumors in the friend group that, hey, let's not go. That's social bullying, and that happens a lot more than what parents realize that it does. Then you have cyberbullying, and that's the biggest one nowadays, okay? In terms of if you look at data, it's a smaller percentage because of the verbal and the physical bullying being big, but in terms of the most problematic with emotional mental health is cyberbullying. Victims of cyberbullying are more 50% higher suicide risk. Okay, they're twice as likely to engage in self-harming behaviors like cutting and things like this and suicidal type behaviors than non-victims of cyberbullying, okay? The reason cyberbullying is so prevalent now and why it's so impactful is back in my day, right? Back in my day, like I'm 100 years old, which I'm not, by the way. But back in my day, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have all the social media that we have. We didn't even have internet. I mean, I had a Commodore 64 and we got Q-Link, which I thought was like amazing, right? We get to talk to people from another state like, this is so cool, right? We never looked at it as an agent of destruction. And what happens with cyberbullying now is like, you can't get away. When I was in school, you didn't like somebody, hey, when that bell rang, you got to go home and you didn't have to deal with them. But now with technology, I can bully you all day long, every day, and twice on Sunday if I want to, right? Because with cyberbullying, people think it's a victimless crime in a sense because I'm behind a screen. I don't have to see my victim. I don't have to make eye contact with my victim. But I can, during our Fortnite game, tell them to kill themselves. You're stupid. Get off the game. I hate you, right? Nobody play with this guy because they suck. I don't have to see you face to face. I don't even have to talk to you necessarily, right? I can text you. I can create group chats. I can send Snapchat memes. I can put pictures on Instagram and things on TikTok. And that's what kids are doing. They don't like little Susie, little Johnny. They're making Instagram posts about why everyone else should not like little Johnny or little Susie. Okay? And even if parents strip all of the technology away and say, well, I keep them off social media. They don't even have a cell phone. They don't have to. Because when they go to school, their friends are going to come and say, did you see what was posted about you? And they're not doing it necessarily to be malicious. They're doing it because like, hey, do you see this? Do you believe this? So it never disappears. Kids never get to escape it. And that's why it's so damaging. Because, hey, in the old days, you could go home. You didn't have to deal with it. You could do your thing. Maybe you have a couple of friends. You're hanging out. But now what's everybody doing? They're on their phones. They're on their digital media.
It's true.
You put it out in the universe, and it stays, And you can't put it back in the bottle once you've squeezed it out of the toothpaste, okay? It's out there. And even if somebody says, I'm going to take it down, okay, but someone else has kept it. And in that time, it circulated to 10 more folks who've shared it with 10 more folks, and they've told 10 more. So it's inescapable.
It lives forever.
That's right. And it damages the psyche, because imagine not getting any escape and, constantly looking at stuff, telling you how much you suck, how much you shouldn't be alive, how much, you're hated and why you should be hated and why nobody should be friends with you. When I do bullying convocations in schools, I ask, how many of you are on social media? I've asked as even kindergartners, okay? And hands go up. Do you have a tablet? Hands go up. Do you know how many likes you get when you post something? Or do you have people that, have made bad comments on games you play? Even at the kindergartner level, hands go up, Yeah. When I do middle school and high schoolers, I ask them, do you count your likes? Do you know how many followers? Instantly. I ask, okay, give me a number. They know. They'll tell me I have 95 followers. Do you care if somebody doesn't like something you post? Well, yeah, we take it down. I said, how many of you take it down? Hands go up, And then I ask them, have you guys seen cyberbullying? Have you seen negative comments? Hands go up, Oh, well, how many of you contribute? Some of those hands stay up, right? More than you would think. And so we live in an age where everybody needs to feel that it's their responsibility to let everybody else know how they feel and why they feel it and why other people should feel it too. We don't mind our own business anymore, right? And when you put those things out there, it damages you to the point where you start caring more about what all these other people think. Should I post this? Oh my God, I posted it. No one's responded in 24 hours. I better take it down. And so we're growing a group of kids that care what everybody else thinks and that live to impossible standards. And it's so easy then to crush their spirit. And that's what's happening.
I totally get that. So I'll kind of give my age a little bit too. I'll just flat out say it. I'm 37. So I was around for the introduction of social media, Facebook, MySpace. Before that time, we had AOL, America Online, or AIM, the instant messenger. There were direct messages, one person to another. So I feel like the change with social media and the whole online interaction, it's not necessarily one-on-one anymore. Correct. Like when I was coming up in early middle school into high school. When you put something on Facebook, Twitter, it's not direct. It can be. You can send a private message, but that's not what they're usually utilizing. They put it out and now everyone can see it. I understand that is a different dynamic, a different aspect from when I was coming up. But just to push back a little bit, you kind of touched on this. Social media, it's not real necessarily. Do you find that it's hard to convey that message to the children these days? That social media, it's around, we understand, but it's not real life. Is that hard to kind of push? It's in
writing. It's on the internet. Of course, it's real. That's what you get from a lot of folks, right?
Yes.
It's if you look up something. Okay, again, back in my day, because I'm 52. Okay. We had to go and do research, right? You had your Encyclopedia Britannica, right? Kids don't even know what that is. Or, God forbid, you had to go to the card catalog in the library or the microfiche machine. I had to do that in college even. So you had to go find stuff, right? Do your research, look at the books, and you looked for stuff in writing, right? If we found it in writing, it existed somewhere, it had to be. And then you had your list of, these are not reliable sources, don't go with these particular not media, but these particular sources, these are not reliable. But encyclopedias, this, these are things, right? We all know that Wikipedia, we hear how Wikipedia is not necessarily all factual. How many people use Wikipedia to look stuff up, right? Nowadays, you Google something. Hey, Siri, hey, Alexa, hey, Google, right? And you can find answers. So the internet, social media, the computer, the laptop, the tablet, the phone, the iPad, that's where I get my info. That's where I get my truth.
Even ChatGPT now, just to throw it in there now.
Right, AI.
AI, yes.
Right? Look at what my AI showed me. My husband was rearranging the spice rack. What are the 10 most common spices to have in a kitchen? Poof, here it is. Well, look at these. Is that the 10 most common? I don't know, but it's there. You know what I'm saying?
It must be true, right?
It must be true. So that's what I'm saying. So that's where we rely on our information. And what kid do you know that's going to go check source something, fact check something?
Yeah, it's not really a thing anymore. I totally understand. No. We weren't even back in my day, we weren't even allowed to use Wikipedia as a source. We had when we wrote term papers, we had to cite our source.
Yes.
And that was always on the list, like, do not go to Wikipedia. Right. But I don't think that exists anymore.
No. And now it's just, are you using AI?
Right.
So they can check to see if
even more narrows it down.
But it's not the social media. Like Facebook, in my vision, and a little bit I've kind of did some digging with Facebook, it was really to like, here, you have family across the country, we're going to share photos, right? You can share photos. You can see, you couldn't come to our wedding, here it is. You know, look at us, we're on our honeymoon, we're happy, right? Now, you don't see the background, you just see the happy photos people paste, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have any clue, you just see all these happy people. Or you see the bad side of things, which is where we get into doom scrolling and other things where you're purposely looking for the negative stuff. Mm-hmm. And if your brain is tender and your brain is wired for anxiety or wired for maybe some depression, things like that, all the negative stuff is going to get stuck in. And if you're anxious, that's great, because you can get into all of this bad stuff. Like during COVID, people were looking for numbers and data and infection rates and non-infection rates and this and that, and look at this and oh my God. And when you doom scroll like that and you're picking all the negative stuff, it drains you, right? It's not the social media itself. Facebook itself, TikTok, there's some really good stuff on TikTok, right? But there's also not so good stuff. So each individual has to figure out a way to weed it out. And you're talking about kids now. You're talking about kids who are getting exposure younger and younger. Okay, I have an 11-year-old. He likes YouTube shorts, okay, which are very 2 to 3 minute, maybe 5 minute little things on YouTube, and TikTok videos. They're all short, right? So if I am somebody searching how to deal with anxiety, which a lot of people do, you know, they find this short on TikTok or they're short on YouTube, and that's great, but there's more to the story than that. Mm-hmm. But, oh, I saw this on TikTok, right? I saw this DIY. I can now build a house because it looks so easy on the DIY, you know. So we, even adults, we use social media. We use these things. So it's not the things themselves that are inherently bad. Cars are not inherently bad. Mm-hmm. It's humans who get behind the wheel and choose to drive drunk. You know, it's the user, right? Absolutely. So it's how do we teach our kids to weed all that out? When social media grows faster, websites grow faster, you know, the dark web, the false news sites, they grow faster by the minute. Mm-hmm. You can't keep up with it. It's up to each person to gauge whether, does this sound right? You know, should I maybe check a couple more things in here? And for parents, do you know what your kids are on? Do you know what your kid's posting? You know? Good point. Well, I don't ask to see my kid's phone, they'll get mad at me. Like, for parents, it is hard to navigate. You know, as many things like with Snapchat, there was, I think it was called Volo, where you could now send chats anonymously. So kids, you couldn't identify them, right? How do parents keep up with that?
Yeah, that's probably not good.
Right. So it's educating parents on, okay, here's the latest as of right now, this date, this time, of sites to watch for versus what it's going to be 6 months from now. And check your kids' stuff. If you're paying for your kid's phone, I'm sorry, you got a right to check it.
It's technically yours.
Well, yeah, it's your plan, you know. And it's not about power and control. It's about, hey, you don't teach a kid to drive by throwing them the keys and saying, get in the car and take off and bye, right? We're a rural community in a lot of areas in Northwest Indiana. We teach kids how to drive tractors and four-wheelers, okay, golf carts. You know, you don't just throw them the keys. You got to sit and teach them. Do the same thing before you give them a cell phone, before you give them a tablet. That's going to be the biggest key there.
That makes sense. It really does. You know, I want to move on to another topic. I want to talk a little bit about trolling. So 15, 20 years ago when I was in college, I had my trusty PlayStation 3. I used to love playing Madden, NBA games. And I tell you, when you're on that portal and you get matched up with other people online, a lot of times you end up with like a little kid, a little 10 to 12-year-old. And let me tell you, those little guys can be mean.
Yes.
They can say some real things that make you rethink life a little bit. That make you like, whoa, I've never even heard of that. Can we talk a little bit about trolling?
Sure.
And you touched on this a little bit, but what parents need to know and be aware of, because, it's not just the cell phones and the tablets. These gaming consoles are also another means of communication, another means, another way to bully. So let's talk a little bit about trolling, if you don't mind.
So trolling is basically sending negative messages of various types, just negative messages in general, on social platforms, including gaming sites, online games, even things like Oculus, the Meta Quest things. My 11-year-old plays Gorilla Tag, and there are some times where luckily, because he keeps the volume up, we can hear what some of the other kids are saying. It's like, whoa, okay, I can block them, right? Do you know what you can do on your kids' gaming platforms? Can do they know how to block people when those negative messages come across? Do you talk to your kids about, all right, look, if I hear some curse words, you see some curse words, or there's negative messages, I need you to block that person or silence them, or do you even know who you're chatting with? Because you're absolutely right. Although the danger these days is it may seem like it's an 11 to 12-year-old kid, but is it really? Right? We all have those conversations. Don't give out your, personal info, where you go to school, or even sometimes what grade you're in. Don't tell them your address or phone number. Mm-hmm. But are we telling our kids, be nice? Don't say negative things?
Right.
Because those are the things that is the trolling that's happening. They're saying negative things. They're posting negative things. They're telling other kids on the online game, don't play with this kid. That's all trolling stuff too. Other things that can happen kind of along that line are setting up fake accounts. Right?
Yeah.
You're trying to set up a fake account because you were banned. You'll hear kids say, I got banned off of this for 24 hours, or I got banned because they said something bad. Mm-hmm. Or somebody reported them for saying something bad.
Right.
Okay?
They did something.
Yeah. But then they set up a fake account so they can do it again under a different name. Right? It's setting fake accounts. It's hate chats where you're setting up a group chat and it's all about why I hate this person. Right? Which they do exist.
I've never heard that term.
Yeah.
Hate chats.
Yeah. You set up a Snapchat with a group or a group chat, and it's all negative about why we hate Susie.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. It'll be abusive votes. Oh, we're going to vote this person out of our group. That's not cool. You don't like somebody, fine, but voting them out of a group and having a platform on social media, whether you're texting or in a Snapchat, come on.
That's pretty rough.
Or you're making a TikTok about why you hate Johnny. And why Johnny needs to be hated. Okay, that kind of stuff. Those are also other things that fall into the cyberbullying category that are, doing videos of setting up entire sites for getting unauthorized pictures of fellow peers. That was big 2 years ago. They set up these not fake, but they set up these Instagram sites. One challenge was to get unflattering pictures of your peers against their knowledge and post them, and then add pretty graphic memes and details to the pictures. And another one was to catch pictures of your peers. These were mainly in middle school and high school. Get pictures of your peers sleeping. And then, again, without their consent or knowledge, and then post them. And I actually talked with a principal back then who's or a superintendent, and he was telling me, I can't believe how many good kids are following these pages. I'm like, they're not following them necessarily because they support it. They also want to know if their picture's going to end up there.
That's a good point.
If I have to go home and explain to my parents why there's this picture of me with explicit and graphic material on it, I want to be, I want to tell them why.
Yeah, you want to be ahead of the curve, right?
Right.
That makes sense.
But it's funny because these sites, the kids are always going to be ahead of us as grown-ups because we just don't have that kind of time. We don't, and it changes so quickly. Even if we found one site, they're going to shut it down and start another one. Mm-hmm. So when I say we don't have time, we physically can't keep up, right? So what happens is we are the last to know. And usually by the time we find out, damage has been done. Mm-hmm. Hopefully not to your kid, right? But it's been done.
It makes sense, ma'am. Let's backtrack a little bit. Let's go back to our day once again, if you don't mind. So when I was coming up, and please, I want to get your opinion on this. So I feel like when we're all with each other, like I said, we're back in school. I feel like the bullying that really took place amongst boys to boys was more of the physical, kind of like you mentioned earlier, pushing into a locker, the swirlies and stuff like that. That's old school. I hope they don't do that anymore. And when it came to the girls, like the movie Mean Girls, you kind of pointed on the social bullying and maybe more verbal. Is it fair to say Do you differ on that opinion that a lot of times when it's boys bullying other boys, it's more physical, but with little girls or, women in school, it would be more towards the social or the verbal? Would you agree with that?
I think historically that's what people think. And I think there is some truth to that, but now it's both ways.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah. You've got girls ready to throw down. More so even than the guys.
That was rare back in the day. You usually saw more boys fight than girls. I mean, I've seen some girl fights, but very rare. Yeah, so that's a little bit of a change today.
Yeah, and I think because of just the popularity and everyone having a smart device and you see there was a group chat where it was a wrestling team that was and it was a boys wrestling team, telling one of their wrestling teammates to go kill themselves. And that was all boys. So I don't think it's necessarily one versus the other. Okay. I think boys don't report it maybe as much because they don't want to be looked at as wimpy or snitching, or they just feel, kids will be kids. That's what a lot of parents say. Well, kids will be kids, and that teaches them to, how to suck it up, and it teaches them how to be tough. Try being told to kill yourself multiple times a week or daily. How tough could you be? And why would you want to go to school? If I'm sitting in math class and I have to think about how to get safely down the hall or how I'm going to get to my next class without somebody telling me that, that's awful. I had a girl one time tell me she ate her lunch on the bathroom floor because the cafeteria was too stressful for her because of all of the name calling and bullying she was getting in the lunchroom. And you ask kids, where does bullying occur? And it's in the classroom, but hallways and cafeteria are big ones. The other one is the bus. Are the big ones for where does that happen?
The bus, absolutely, man. Even, like I said, back in our day, the bus stop was prime. That was prime place to get bullied, to see a lot of fights. The bus stop. So it's unfortunate that stuff is still kind of around, and that trend really hasn't changed. You kind of led us into our next segment, man, the impacts and misconceptions of bullying. So can we talk a little bit about some of the lasting effects that children can have from being bullied? It can cause physical, emotional, social, even academic harm.
Yes. School, again, has to be a safe learning environment. You see a lot of grades decline, that kids that were pretty good students that now they're not doing their work, they're not turning stuff in because they don't want to go, or they're too anxious. I can't sit in class and focus on my work when I got to worry about, I can't go to the bathroom during passing period because that's where my bully's waiting for me. So, I have to get up and go in class, or I miss lessons, things like that. 25% of teens ages 12 to 18 now have a diagnosed mental health disorder. 32% of teens 13 to 18 are diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. 13% of ages 13 to 17 are now diagnosed with depression. Okay, that's what bullying can do. That's what bullying is doing. And so this isn't just it makes kids tougher. It's not. It's wearing our kids down. From the ages of 5 to about 18. On average, right? I know some kids start at 6 and some kids graduate at 19. But from ages 5 to 18, you have to attend school or some type of learning program, whether it's public, private. We'll add online and homeschool now. But let's focus on going in person. 13 years. Imagine, you're a kindergartner, you got a little backpack, your new shoes, your special first day of school outfit, 20% of kindergartners now are reporting being bullied. Imagine now you got to be at this place with these people for 13 years, right? And at kindergarten, we're seeing school avoidance. That's not okay. And in general, 1 in 5 students report being documented bullying, right? And you talk to those kids, and almost 50% of them tell you that when they've reported bullying, they don't believe it's not going to happen again. They believe it's absolutely going to happen again because they even know there's only so much other people can do, right? They're looking to the adults to fix it. And we're not doing a good job of it. Partially because it's not solely up to us, and I'll get to that, but also because we can't keep ahead of it. How do you keep ahead of a moving freight train, right? What we can control is making sure that we are raising children. You don't have to like everybody. just be kind. Be a kind human. If parents do nothing else, be a kind human. Okay? You're not going to like everybody in this life. You're not going to like everybody you're forced to be with for those 13 years of school. Right? Especially in our area where we have a lot of smaller schools where it's the same group of kids from kindergarten up through high school, right? We have a lot of schools where it's like that. And once you're not liked in 5th grade, you ain't going to be liked in middle school. And if you ain't liked in middle school, you probably ain't going to be liked by the same group of kids in high school. In bigger schools, maybe you could get lost, right, with other groups and kind of navigate. But in the smaller schools where your entire school has maybe 300 kids, it's hard to get lost, in the shuffle, right? In bigger schools where you got 500-600 kids, it's easier. So when you have to face the same group for all those years, 13 of them, and we don't let go of stuff as humans, right? We keep that tally board of how much you wronged us or we didn't like you back in 6th grade. It's hard sometimes to get past that, even in the high school years. So the biggest thing you can do as a parent is teach your kid just to be kind. No, you don't have to like the weird kids. I don't know why they're weird, but let's just say the weird kids. You're not going to invite them over, but that doesn't mean you ostracize them, right? How about we stop calling them weird kids? How about we still say, hey, good morning. Hey, have a good day. Right? And not tell other people, don't sit at the table with the weird kids. That's what we have to stop, is perpetuating that, well, we don't like them, so we don't think you should like them. You know what I mean? That's going to be the biggest thing to help. We've got so many kids that do not want to go to school, and since COVID taught us we could do a lot of stuff from home, that damaged a lot of kids too, because now they realized, well, I don't have to sit with these people. Like, I've even heard some kids go, oh my God, I really hated going to school, but COVID made me change that because I can't do the work on my own. Like, I need the classroom and the board with the teacher, and I need that. But for a lot of other kids, it's like, I don't got to deal with these people? Cool. I want to do my work from home. And we have more online programs now than we ever had. We never had online school. We had alternative school, I think even night school. But that was the only kind of school I remember, and you had to do something pretty bad to get into that. Not, let's just put you on an online, right? And so I think that it's been easier for a lot of kids to say, I can't. I just don't want to go to school. I can do it online. And we're not teaching kids how to deal with each other. We don't have face-to-face interactions as much. Have you heard of the silent raves that they're doing even at the college level? Everyone has earbuds, has music, the same music playing on their phone, but they're dancing in this huge room and it's completely silent because they're all dancing to the music in their headphones. You invite kids over for a play date, they're all sitting on their phones. Are they interacting? We don't know how to interact as people. And so part of the social anxiety now is part of that. We've forgotten how to just be kind. Well, what if people stare at me? What if people talk about me?
Deal with it.
Right. But they can't.
Right.
Because they don't know how.
Understood.
And that's part of it. We really have a generation. 73% of Generation Z report feeling lonely and isolated. And you know what parents will tell me? Well, they spend all this time in their room. And what are they doing in there? Are you knocking on the door and checking? Are you saying, hey, what are you doing? So we have a population of people that are feeling alone, even in a group of people. That's not okay.
No.
And that's also from bullying and from the social pressure of everyone's judging me all the time, because we can't just be kind humans.
I want to get your thoughts on something. So we've talked about the negative effects of those who are being bullied. I want to get your thoughts on the negative effects of those who are the actual bullies. So, they're, like I said, we're just from a different era where, we had that bully and it was more in person. And a lot of times that person would kind of grow out of bullying. Maybe you grew bigger than them. Maybe you got bigger than them. Maybe you moved away. Can we maybe talk a little bit about the side effects of those children who were bullies as children and they grow up and they were never corrected, some of those same tendencies, some of that same attitude could linger into adulthood, and nobody wants to deal with any kind of bully, a child or an adult bully. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
If that stuff's not corrected, it can lead you to a very negative life.
Well, part of the reason a lot of bullying intervention programs fail or are not as successful, right, as people would like them to be, is they don't always include empathy education. A lot of bullying things that are done are about punishing the bully. And everyone's like, yeah, they should be punished. And I'm not saying that, but you have to also teach empathy, because if you are a bully, you don't necessarily understand what that is doing to your victim. You just look at it as power and control, and power is a very powerful thing, right? Feeling power over somebody, feeling tough, feeling like nobody can touch you, nobody can take you down, right? And that's a powerful thing. You don't realize that the person is an actual person on the other side of it. A lot of the research on people who do bully are about, do they have empathy, and what kind of empathy do they lack? And a lot of it is they don't necessarily have sympathy. They lack the affective and cognitive part of understanding what I'm doing is actually hurting someone. Okay? My favorite story is when I started our bullying intervention program and support groups down at Oregon Davis. In my first time, we had a student in there who was from another school district who was identified immediately by the school and came into my bully group because he was identified as a bully. And, I'm from such and such, and I'm a tough guy, and I had so many fights and this and that. And that's what you tend to see, right? The kind of big, bad, I'm a fighter and ain't no one gonna disrespect me. And I will tell you that he needed someone to listen. He needed someone to just chat with him, and we worked on empathy. That's part of my intervention program anyway. And he's now one of my mentors. And he started with me as a middle school student, and now he's in high school, and he's one of my mentors. And last time I was out there, he asked me for a shirt. And he helped do some planning of interventions. He wanted to do like an apology group with people. I mean, this is what can happen. Yes, you can talk to a bully. You can make a difference. Part of it is they've been through some stuff. They've had some trauma. Part of it is nobody sat down with them and really talked about what this does, right? You have to teach empathy as part of any bullying program. It can't just be suspending, expulsion, right? Detention, because all that does is make them mad. You do have to have interventions in place, right? There does have to be a disciplinary track, but you have to also sit down and spend time and find the value in that person too, because they're a human also, And a lot of times what happens is bullies get this persona and nobody wants to challenge that, right? The reason bullies get to stay bullies a lot of times is because bystanders and others say nothing. Right? They let it go because they're afraid they might be next. So this bully gets this, I'm a tough guy, so I'm supposed to be a tough guy. And if somebody does disrespect me, I got to stand up and keep my role, right? Part of it is teaching them, what is that role doing for you? Truly and honestly. Is there another way you could interact with people and not have this role, right? Because that role becomes part of their identity. I'm supposed to be the big bad. I'm supposed to be tough. Right? And so part of bullying prevention with them is you're more than that. You're more than just this tough guy or tough gal, okay, or tough person. And so you can be more than what your title is right now, and that really helps turn a lot of corners. So yeah, there are some people that outgrow it because, again, we're not mature, right? Our frontal lobes are not fully developed in our brains until they're even saying now more late 20s.
Right.
Okay? So there is a maturity that does come with this. But again, 5 to 18, right? With the same people, school becomes your identity, who you are, who other people are. That's your identity in school. So part of it is accepting that, and what can we do to change that? Do you want to change that? is it even possible? Because they don't think it is. So, you have to treat the bully like they're human too, and teach them empathy and the human component. And yes, you can turn some major corners in doing so.
That's an awesome success story. It really is. It's important to get them while they're young. Everyone has a chance. All the youngsters have a chance. You're not, like you said, you're not fully developed as a teenager or, even in your early 20s. You do have a chance to improve and do better. So that is a great success story. We have about 5 minutes left in the show. This has been very educational, and this has been a really good topic. I don't want to wrap up too soon. I would like you to maybe talk a little bit about where people can find your information. If you have any events coming up, are there any local partnerships that you would like to kind of point out that kind of help you with your cause here in Porter County?
Okay, so our website is www.bullyingfreefuture.com. Yes, it's long. I apologize for that. We do also have a Facebook page, Bullying Free Future. You can find us on Facebook. And we just did the entry into the 211 system, so we're on there as well. It is coming up to October. We'll be doing a lot of our bullying convocations for schools that want us out to come out and do that for them. So just contact us. We are not booked yet for October, so we do book up pretty quick. Our services are free. We do have some schools that did a grant for us or did donations. Again, we don't demand that. I did not get into this for the money. This is my side job. I have a private practice where I make my income. This is to help kids. Okay, that's what we're here to do. I would love we'll go to churches, we'll go to talk to parents, we'll go to a classroom and do a presentation on it. So, reach out to us for that. We are very happy with our partnership with Porter County Health Department. We've done a couple events already for health fairs. So right now, because school started, we're kind of laying low just to keep our selves available to see what people want from us at this point. So give us a call and we can certainly hop on board. I will do a shout out to Oregon Davis since we've been there for 4 years. And as far as I know, we're planning on coming back this year. So we go out there and they've been great for us. And I believe we've been pretty good for them. So I'm real proud of that. For parents, I will tell you, if you're looking for resources, there's some pretty good ones out there. A big one is stopbullying.gov. There is the Pacer Center that has a lot of good bullying resources on that. There's Stomp Out Bullying. That's a really good one. If you're looking for your school's information, I would refer you back to your school's handbook. The Indiana Department of Education, IDOE website is another good one because, like I said, you can find your school's safety data on there. And they, I think, have some sites that they have too listed on their site as well.
Awesome. That's good stuff, ma'am. We have a couple of minutes. I do want to end on a little bit of a lighter note. So I do have a couple of fun questions.
Okay.
And we'll close out. What's your favorite Disney movie?
Oh my gosh.
You're a mom. What's your favorite Disney movie?
I'm a Disney freak, so that's really hard for me. I've seen about 100 of the Disney movies like 100 times each, so I don't know that I have a favorite, but I think I'd probably have to say Aladdin.
Okay.
I'm a Star Trek fan too, and a Star Wars fan, so you could throw those in there too.
Gotcha. I know they're.
I'm an old school Trekkie.
They're a part of them now.
They're a part of them now, right? Yeah.
Okay, let me give you one more. Let's go back to our childhood one last time, Jennifer. Okay. Saturday morning. What cartoons are we watching, or what was your favorite show growing up?
Oh my goodness. Probably my favorite cartoon is the Flintstones.
Oh yeah.
The Flintstones are hilarious even to now. Yeah. My favorite show growing up, oh my gosh. My mom and I used to watch a lot of Dallas.
Okay.
I still remember when it was Who Killed JR, and when Bobby woke up from the dream. So, I mean, yeah, old school, man. We're talking old school.
That is some good stuff, Jennifer. We appreciate your time today, man. Thank you so much for sharing your insight on this important work that you do in the community. Ladies and gentlemen of Porter County, listening to WVLP 103.1 FM, we hope that you learned something today. For more information on these initiatives and and events that are going on. You can follow us on our social media as well. You can also find us at the Porter County Government website, which is www.portercountyin.gov, or you can go straight to our health department website, which is www.in.gov/local-health/Porter County, or you can find us on Twitter, x.com, or X if you're calling it that, x.com county_Porter. Our Facebook is facebook.com/Porter County Health DEPT, and our Instagram is Porter_County HD. This is Demetrius Lewis, Communications Manager for the Porter County Health Department, signing off. Thank you.